We're talking with Councilwoman Rosie Mendez, who represents New York City's 2nd District. And right now we're focusing on one of the issues that's very controversial and very significant in New York and other areas, and that is hate crimes and attacks on either people because they're gay or because they're perceived to be immigrants and so on and so forth. When it comes to the issue of immigrant attacks, how does that compare with other crimes, to your knowledge, or to the crimes that are specifically directed at someone perceived to be gay or lesbian?
Well, they're the same in that it's an outrage or a discrimination against a group or a perception of a group. And what they say in most of these places where you see hate crimes spiking, it's usually because of the economy, or because groups are extended beyond their natural communities. So if we can go back to the 1980s, that's why that's what happened in Howard Beach and in Bensonhurst, where minority groups were extended and overpopulating and moving into other areas that were more white, and then attacks started happening.
I might add that it goes back to, at least in my case, the 1950s, when I had to encounter violence and being beat up because my mother had the disgrace of moving into a neighborhood where there were no Latinos yet of any significance. So that's a little bit of an old story.
What community was that one?
Washington Heights.
Wow.
Yeah. But anyway, go ahead.
So, but I'm not quite sure what's happening here. We have, in the case of the Asian women who were being attacked, 3 young kids who were doing this for kicks, and they were thinking of starting a young little gang, and this was going to be sort of like the initiation. In other cases, you know, people are going out specifically and looking for a gay person or a Latino person and actively searching for them. That's what happened out in Long Island, where Marcelo Lucero was murdered. They were looking for a Mexican to beat up, and they beat him up and killed him. In the case of Manuel Mai, back in 1991, a young Dominican CUNY student who was heading home after dropping off his girlfriend decided to take a shortcut in Queens to get home because it was late and he wanted to go home and study, and cut through a park known as Spaghetti Park.
In Corona?
Yes. Yes. And so when he cut through Spaghetti Park, a young group of white teens chased him with baseball bats and ended up killing him.
But talking more currently, there seems to be specifically a rise in anti-immigrant feelings,
yes,
and concomitantly some rise in anti-immigrant attacks.
And I think when we look at what's been happening in this country, and we see the murder of Lucero in Long Island, well, what happened in Long Island years before that? The legislators there were passing legislation against day laborers and was infusing with legislation almost a hatred that's embedded in the law. And they were going against someone's constitutional right to stand on a street corner and using supposed traffic and pedestrian safety as a way of trying to move the day laborers out of there. So people who had no feeling about that at some point got very riled up, and when you started to listen to the people, the rhetoric that was coming out was pretty horrendous. You see that, you go to...
well, of course, it's not limited to Long Island. I mean,
no, and it happened in Pennsylvania, in Shenandoah, and it's happened here. But the legislation in this country, and specifically under Bush, where he was proposing that municipalities could apply for a federal program to institute immigration control and allowing local enforcement officers to go under this program that was known as 287G, which the Obama administration was very critical of and has been looking into it. But those kind of tactics, when you have government and officers just randomly stopping people because they're being told they can without knowing what kind of documents they could ask for becomes immigrant profiling.